right. Welcome to this week's edition of Justice HQ's Level Up with Laiken. If you are looking for tangible tips to grow your practice and the mindset you're going to need to do it, please hit subscribe. I interview a new attorney each week who discusses the strategies that they have used and successfully implemented to grow their own practices. And this week, this man needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyways. It is Brad Simon of Simon Law Group. And I have to say, I'm especially excited to have him because he was so difficult to track down. I had to, excuse me, Brad, but I had to friendly stalk him. And he finally made time. Thank you so much for fitting us into your schedule. I'm very excited about all the information that you have to share with JHQ members and the world. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Brad Simon. And Brad, if you wouldn't mind, I liked the story of how you became a lawyer, and you told me you were going to make me wait until today to tell me why you became a lawyer.
Before we get started, you wanted to plug your YouTube channel. I have my own YouTube channel. It's called Dad and Kane Play Games, and it's where my 7-year-old son plays video games nonstop. And I'm basically there holding my iPhone and recording him with some light commentary, a couple of dad jokes, but I'm just getting that out there. If you want to subscribe to an awesome channel that's just a 7-year-old playing multiple video games, there you go.
That's awesome.
So, I became a lawyer. Well, I wanted to become a lawyer. This was a long time ago. It was, Bob and I, my twin brother, Bob, Robert Simon, we owned the firm together. We're partners in the Simon Law Group. We were probably 7 or 8 ourselves, and our Uncle Terry, and when I say our uncle, it was my dad's uncle, but my grandmother is one of 12 kids. So
Whoa.
Like my dad's Uncle Terry was like 3 years older than him. So we called him my Uncle Terry. And my Uncle Terry got into a bad car wreck and was paralyzed. And I remember like seeing this all happen in the process and how sad it was because my dad's cousins, who we call our cousins because of course they are our exact same age, they had their dad go through this, and of course it destroyed their family. But then we started to see, hey, they bought this giant piece of land right outside of Pittsburgh, and they started subdividing the land. We're little kids and we're just playing in construction sites, and then we see them plotting out houses for different family members. And it took me a while to understand what had actually happened is the person who had hit my Uncle Terry was driving for some big bank in Pittsburgh. And it took a lawyer to come in and figure out that, hey, this person was in the course and scope of their employment, was able to take this thing right up to, I think during trial or right before trial, settle the case for some amazing amount of money. Again, this is in the 1980s, where my Uncle Terry was able to, part of his settlement was to get health care for life. He always had in-care, in-home needs, anything he ever needed, and he was taken care of. I mean, he passed away probably 10 years ago or less than 10 years ago, but he was able to buy an entire, my grandmother's maiden name was Kane, and that was his last name, Terry Kane. And so they called it Kane Lane, and it's right outside of Pittsburgh. It's probably 15 homes are on it, and they all were designated for different family members. And so my dad's brother, my Uncle Jim, lives across the street from Uncle Terry. He still lives there to this day, and I still go back there, and you can see wild deer in the backyard. But we were able to see that all being built, and I didn't understand why until I was older and how that came to happen. So it was amazing to see like how you can. It took a real lawyer. Like most lawyers would have looked at that and said, "Hey, it's a drunk driver. He's driving some old car. What are we going to do with this? Nothing, But someone actually dug in and was able to set up his whole family for life. Like my cousins got to go to, Shady Side Academy in Pittsburgh, which is a very hard school to get into. They were able to get into there. They were able to travel internationally. They were able to do pretty much anything that they were capable of. And it was a lawyer that helped set that all in motion. And specifically, it was a consumer advocate, a trial lawyer.
And that obviously had, an inspiration effect for you to go to law school, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
But all of you guys went to law school, all three of you.
Well, the three boys went to law school. The two girls decided to be accountants and business owners and CEOs, but they went a different path. But I'm one of five. I mean, my grandmother was one of 12. It's, in Pittsburgh, when you have Irish Catholics, they don't really believe in condoms. So, large families.
I happen to be one of 7, and I am also a twin, so I get it. That's awesome.
There you go.
So you go to law school. Where do you go to law school?
I went to Southwestern downtown LA. Bob went to Pepperdine. I'd actually taken a year off. Bob and I both went to George Washington in Washington, D.C. for undergrad. And I took a year off to work in a law firm in Washington, D.C. to make sure like this is definitely what I wanted to do. And I also took a year off between undergrad and law school to try to actually draw comics because I'm, pretty good at that, and realized pretty quickly that it was very impossible to get into, to ever get syndicated. And Bob was already in law school and seemed to be having a good time out in Malibu. So I decided it was time to go west.
Okay. So you go west, you go to my alma mater, Southwestern. And when you were at Southwestern, did it solidify your decision to be a lawyer, or did you already know that going there?
I knew that going in, and that was a big drive, was just being in LA. When you come to LA, most people are like, I want to be an entertainment lawyer, or I want to be a sports lawyer. And of course, I wanted to do that first. And then you quickly realize that in order to get into that industry, you need to know somebody, you need to be independently wealthy, because out of law school, you're literally going to work in the mailroom at some big agency and make 40 grand a year. And good luck having any loans and being able to maintain any lifestyle or rent in LA and do that. So, I was in law school and thankfully got a nice clerkship, a paying clerkship, and was able to work while in law school. But that's, being in Los Angeles, obviously the weather can't be beat anywhere in the world. And the learning experience, I love the law. I mean, I don't remember a single thing from college, like really only like some criminal justice classes and maybe like psychology of a serial killer. I remember that, but I remember probably everything in law school. I liked it. Everything made sense. The law was just about being practical and logical and backing into what the law should be. And it's kind of, you work the cases backwards. Like, this is what it should be, and then find the law to support logic. And so I've always really liked that. I loved every class that I took. I still really like it, like intellectual property, trademark, patent, and copyright law. That's coming up a little bit more as I'm doing a new project, but really being a lawyer, you know a little bit about everything, and then you specialize in one thing, like Bob and I decided to do 10, 11 years ago.
Okay. So you get out of law school, but you don't start in personal injury, right?
I had to get a job. I got student loans. George Washington is one of the most expensive schools in the country. And, when one sibling's going there, the other one's half off, but it's still extremely pricey. Law school is also not cheap. So I needed to find a job that was paying. So I started doing like securities and exchange stuff, transactions, private placement memorandums, and things for startup companies. I did that for I did that all while in law school, and then after law school for a year. Then I also like real estate. So I did some real estate litigation. This was defense work. Moved to Orange County and started doing, defending the soulless banks and mortgage companies against human beings, which was not fun.
Yeah, I know that, Jam. I did something. I did the insurance defense thing, and I found the experience to be very similar to what you found it to be. But while you were doing that, you were also helping Bob with his brand new firm, right?
So Bob started the law offices of Robert T. Simon with our younger brother, Brandon, who was just out of college, hadn't gone to law school yet.
What's the T stand for?
Terrence.
Okay.
Uncle Terry, our Uncle Terry.
Okay.
His real name is Terrence.
Okay.
My Uncle Terry's real name is Patrick, but everyone in that family went by a different name than their real first name. So no, his real name was Paul, because there was another guy we called Uncle Bob, but his real name was Patrick. My grandmother was Ruth, but her real name is Victoria. Everyone just like picked different names for themselves, even though it was never even their real name. So anyway, really named after Uncle Terry, even though that wasn't his real name, it's a name he went by. So Bob was doing that. He started his own firm in 2008, maybe probably 2008 or 2009.
Was he right out of law school? He started his own firm?
No, he's working personal injury law firm during law school and then right after. So he was trying cases, bringing in some cases, and decided to go out on his own. But you know how difficult most people are right now is if you want to try cases, you can't really do that while maintaining a practice, because your other cases don't just stop at times, things still happen.
Right.
They're still like, you're all taking 2 depositions or maybe just 1 deposition. That doesn't mean your law of motion, it's still there when you're done. So I was helping Bob and Brandon at nights after my real estate job to do some pleadings and discovery and law in motion after hours, until at one point, Bob convinced me we should partner up and do a real big, like not a big law firm, but a law firm. Let's really do this and commit to it. So it was, I was living in San Juan Capistrano at the time, which is very, very south Orange County. And our first office was West LA, which is like so hard to get to.
Why so far? Why so far from where you were?
Because that's where the business was. That's where we were able to get a space. And that's where, you know, this is way before right now where we can work anywhere we want. Back then you had to get into an office to meet the clients and you had to be there every day. So I would drive up from San Juan Capistrano, probably take an hour and a half, and then crash at Bob's for a couple nights, and then go work from home a couple nights and keep doing that on repeat for years. I have good memories of it because it was fun. It was like Bob had this condo that he had in Brentwood, and my little brother was there and my little sister was there, and it was fun. But you know, not everyone has a Bob to go out there and do all the face work, and a me to sit back and do all of the business administration and research and writing. So we complemented each other, but I understand most people don't have a twin. You have a twin, but your twin's in Australia and probably not helping you too much with the practice of law.
No. No. But that's interesting because when we talked yesterday, I had asked you, you know, is it a fair representation that, you know, Bob was more of the trial lawyer, the face, you were more business development, and you would explain that Bob would come with the ideas and then you would figure out how to make them happen?
I think that's a very good representation. I think every idea that Bob has is a fantastic idea. It's just getting to focus on 1 or 2 and prioritize what are the best ideas and what we can actually have the infrastructure to do immediately versus a roadmap of what can get done. And he actually posted something very funny on his Planet Fun Bob Instagram today. Was it, you know, the Kool-Aid guy that burst through the wall? He posted something this morning like, I'm up at 3:30 a.m. I'm sorry, everybody, because you know he'll wake up and just start throwing ideas out there. And some of the ideas are great. I think all of them are great. It's just a matter of, I have understood, and some people are starting to understand that work with him now, that he doesn't want these things to happen immediately. He's just putting out his mood board of what can happen and seeing what can stick, like what's a good path, what's a good idea, because I think he keeps a little journal next to his bed. And then when he gets up, he just wants to communicate that to everybody. And I've always, my job has been problem solving and making Bob's dreams come true. Some of them are my dreams because we're twins, but he's got a great path for everything. And it's just someone needed trailblaze that path, make sure we have a foundation and, you know, a system together to do that.
What if you were to describe what your dream is, what would it be?
I live the dream right now. I get to work from home. I love being at home. I don't like being outside of home. I do like talking to people, but I don't, you know, I've always found it a waste of time to commute to places and sit in the car. And I'm just trying to get from point A to point B as fast as I can to get the job done. Now I can do this interview with you right now. I've got a meeting with another, like a marketing team later this afternoon, and I can take breaks to play video games with my son at Dad and Kane Play Video Games on YouTube, feel free to subscribe, hit that like button, right?
How do you spell that? Just so people know how to get there.
Okay, so my son's name is pronounced Kane, but it's spelled Kane, like my grandmother's maiden name and my Uncle Terry's last name, Kane. So you can find that on YouTube. And it's really, he just plays video games. He plays old school Zelda to Cuphead to a lot of Minecraft, to Octopath Traveler, a lot of he's really into it.
Okay. So it's Dad. One more time.
Dad and Kane, Kane, play games.
Got it. Dad and Kane Play Games on YouTube. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The reason I asked you about what your dream would be is because I'd asked you yesterday on our phone call, whether you guys, and you guys being, the whole Simon Law Group family, had envisioned what Simon Law Group ultimately became. And you had said, no, we initially wanted it to be, a smaller family run firm, but when the faucet starts running, you don't go turn it off. Right?
Yeah, so we started off, it was just me and Bob and Brandon, and Brandon had to go to law school. And so that first, we had to bring on eventually our mom to help with bookkeeping because I was doing the bookkeeping. And to get someone to do the books, number one thing for a bookkeeper isn't finance, it isn't systems, it is trust. If you're going to get someone to be your bookkeeper, you have to trust them with everything. So let's move Mom out from Pittsburgh. She'd be great at that. So we did.
And she was on board, obviously.
I mean, it took some convincing, but she realized, all her sons were out here. Her youngest daughter maybe she was in college at that point, but she was going to San Diego at some point for college. So she wanted, to come out and work with the family. We wanted to be family. We eventually do run out of family members. We can only go so far. It is a big family, but we ran out.
You guys only have like 30 of them.
But then we have, we eventually did bring out my dad to work for us. My cousin Lisa worked for us for a little bit. And, our first hire is probably our all-time best hire, a guy named Heath.
Oh, man.
Eric was someone that was just, that first person we hire, I have no idea what education Eric has or what his background is. But when I first met him, it was like, man, this guy, he just a very good personality. I immediately just trusted him and he knows what he's doing. So it was a very hard leap of faith because hiring someone is like, man, I got to pay this person to, I'm supporting this person. I'm in charge, responsible for them and their family. And it is hard to do that. But once you do that, I realized he can do 10 times better a job at some things that I'm terrible at. And that lets me focus on doing things that are better for the progression of our firm.
And you couldn't have hired a nicer person.
No, he's literally the best person. He's the most helpful. He's always responsive. He'll get you anything you need and he'll do it with a smile. And he's a great human being. And that's what I keep saying. Trust is the most important thing. And it's just that gut feeling of, am I going to be working with this person potentially for life? And that's what I look at every hire is this someone that I like and want to be with long-term? Because if you're just looking at a short-term solution, that's all that person's ever going to be.
Right.
Right. You don't want the short-term solution. You want someone that's going to grow with you and you listen to them and understand what they may have a better way of doing things than of what you thought. And it keeps progressing more and more.
And from what I know about your family, you all are big on attitude, which was a premise of GHQ. I remember when Bob told me, he's like, we don't want to have anybody that people are not going to be excited to see every day, so that the energy seems to be big for you guys. Yeah, so it really, you got to have a good atmosphere of work, definitely at home, but at work, you want that positive atmosphere that we're gonna push through it. And my mom, one of the first things she's ever taught us when we were little is you cannot complain about anything unless you have a solution. Unless you're offering a solution, complaining is just negative energy. I know some people just need to vent and they just want to get it out there, but I'm someone that unless
I have an idea of how to fix it. It's not a complaint, it's a constructive way of doing something better.
It's identifying the problem and identifying the solution. Some people look at problems as problems, and other people look at them as opportunities for solutions.
That's how I looked at everything, and that's how a lot of the people that we brought onto the firm, they're more problem solvers, because that's what the law is. There is a problem, and you need to help solve that problem for the client. And there's multiple avenues to get to that solution. But if you're just going to complain about the solution, it's going to get stuck, or complain about the problem. So that's what I think, like, why Justice HQ is so successful. It's a bunch of people that are problem solvers, and it's different problems that they're solving that I can't do myself. I don't know how to do probate law or lemon law or elder abuse like Kyle does. I would be bad at it, and I would be doing a disservice to the client to sit down and try to figure out how to solve that problem when somebody else already knows the solution to that problem.
Oh, beyond just areas external to my practice, I enjoy having a PI question that I posted one yesterday. I'm like, hey, I've never faced this issue before. I could have spent 14 hours researching how to deal with it. I went and posted it on Slack. Someone responds, Yanni, he's like, hey, I had a similar case to that, give me a call. My gosh, thank you, right? Like, that's the whole purpose of it. Or even just things we do know, but we get to bounce ideas around, hey, what do you think this is worth?
Yeah, sometimes we miss something. There could be,
Totally.
in the law, there's a workers' comp crossover to a potential civil
Yes.
case that a lot of
Yes.
people miss, that guys like Adam Saban will understand and get. And Justin Heim, I bounced off some ideas on him early on where we were able to figure out, hey, this could be a workers' comp case. And it was, and we ended up settling it for a lot of money for a client that we were ready to say no to say, like, this is not a good avenue to recovery. So that's one of the things that people get in trouble with the most as a lawyer, is just your ego takes control.
Yes.
And we see that a lot with, the fall from grace from older lawyers that have just feel like, sometimes they're taking off more than they should, overextending themselves. But a lot of times it's just ego. And I think everyone the best practice is to understand you don't know everything. There's going to be someone.
Our course says ego, no amigo.
I saw that and I love that. It's true. Like RJ at Justice HQ, I think I know systems pretty well. Then I see what RJ does and he builds out, and I'm like, wow, he knows more than me. So that's something that I didn't think. I thought that I was at the pinnacle of, like, understanding some things, and then he's even better. So even if you think that you were the best at something, like, you always have something to learn. You can always do better. And I do think that getting a community together of people that, even if they do mostly the same thing, you're always going to learn something new. And that always benefits the client ultimately, because that's the goal. The goal is for the client to have the maximum success. So that's the key to what I think Justice HQ should be, and is now, and will continue into the future, is maximizing the consumer's recovery, getting the consumer with the best lawyer possible. And the best lawyers rarely the ones you see on TV or billboards. The best lawyers are the ones that you don't hear about, that just has amazing results, but just needs a better avenue to get their likeness out there, and just to get connected with consumers.
100%. 150% agree with you. But you did touch on something, and I want to go into that because that's an issue that I get asked about a lot. And you mentioned that Eric was your first hire. Was Eric hired for the same role that he performs now?
Mostly, but he's taken on more. It's hard for him to take a step back and be a strict manager, because he likes to do things himself. Yeah, he was brought on to help us in the pre-lit department with coordinating clients' medical care. That was his initial job. He still does that a lot, but now he has a team under him that's helping him, to where he does it all. He does case intake. He talks to clients, talks them through their problems, finds the best solution for them. He helps people he negotiates property damage all the time for free. I think he's been so successful because he helps so many people, usually for free. And then those people down the line end up needing help for something that does become a big windfall for us. But that's because Eric was able to stop and help people. but now he does lien negotiations, distribution sheet, sets it up, negotiates everything down. I review every case that we pay out, but that the system is Eric gets everything done. I look at it and I think maybe 5 times out of 100, I'll make a change to it because he usually has that.
He's my go-to. Like when I, being a solo, I came from firms that had those departments that had people in them, not as good as Eric, but they ran it. I never had to do it, right? So I go out on my own and someone said, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know who the subrogation company is for this insurance company. Like, oh, email Eric. So I emailed Eric. Within 5 minutes, got a response. Then I was like, hey, I don't know what to negotiate these Cairo bills for. I emailed Eric. Within 5 minutes, I had a response. I'm like, man, where do I send you cookies? He's so helpful. What a great hire. But when you do go, and this is an issue that I run into as well. Like I, want to find an assistant / paralegal that, is going, that's their career. Like that's what they want. And you trust them. When did you guys know it was time for a hire? How did you go about doing it and finding someone that you could trust?
It's really hard. It took us, we went out to dinner with Eric and just met him and talked to him personally about, he had a son at the time. Now he has a daughter, but his son at the time was small. And now I know his son Matthew is like about to go to college. And so it's just, it was a very long time that we were able to grow together. The only disappointing thing is I don't get to see him every day. When we worked in Santa Monica, he would be driving in from the Valley. I'd be fucking coming in from San Juan Capistrano, and we would meet there, and we were able to see each other every day. And now it's more of a virtual world, and he's still in the Valley, and I'm in Orange County. And I'd like, when the Justice HQ Torrance building is open, that's going to be a great opportunity. I'm going to be there a lot. It's very close to where I live, and even the Santa Ana office is too. But this Torrance building will be pretty convenient. So, we could have meetups with Eric, and Eric can just talk about lien negotiations and which the best providers. And
I'm really looking forward to the Torrance. That will be my home too.
Alonzo at Gary Dornick's office is kind of the same caliber of human being where he's willing to help too. And if we just had an Eric and Alonzo tell all, it would be like, the women tell all at The Bachelor, but way more informative and probably not any cat fights. So I think that's one of the first things we want to do when Torrance is open is just put on some actually in-person MCLEs. And I know that we're working, or Justice HQ is working on being an accredited institution to give MCLEs and give credits for talks. Even a talk like this could be an MCLE opportunity for members.
Okay.
So yeah, hiring people, Eric was our first non-family member, and he's been with us forever. My mom, my dad, my cousin Lisa, who wanted to do more employment defense, and she's doing that to this day. Obviously, my brother Brandon, a lot of people. Jenny Anglin, who my life partner and I live with now. She's an attorney at the Simon Law Group. She's a member of Justice HQ. I think she's stepping out of her comfort zone this week to speak at an organization too. So it's pretty cool to see a lot of people that they're family members that are part of the firm and also part of Justice HQ, like Julie and RJ behind the camera there too.
Okay. So if you were to go back, given how you've watched the Simon Law Group blossom into something bigger than any of you guys had pictured in the beginning, what if you were to tell somebody what was most responsible for that success, what would it be?
Okay, this is going to sound real weird, but I think the best thing we ever did early on was we had a case that was too big for us at the time. It was going to take a lot of experts. It may have needed to be tried at the time, and we brought in a trial law firm, but still well-known trial lawyer to come in and help us with that case. The case ended up settling for mid 7 figures. And it's something we may have been able to do ourselves, but it would have been taken, mortgages against our own homes, and it would have been really hard to do that. And that was able to get enough cash. And then the cash, instead of using it to buy toys, Bob and I always wanted to invest in the business. And so every time we had a big hit, we would use that money to hire people. And a really good thing we did early on, and which I think some members of Justice HQ take an opportunity or have taken advantage of, is a company called Advocate Capital. And Advocate Capital, as a personal injury lawyer, or trial lawyer, you're fronting all the client expenses, at least $100,000 for any decent case of just a loan that you're giving the client that you'll get back maybe if you win. So there's, Advocate Capital will let you borrow the case costs, so you have that as operating expenses. And then when the case is over, you get the cost back. And I would recommend only borrowing on cases that you're going to settle for a profit or resolve. Like, I wouldn't say let's borrow $100,000 on a disputed liability slip and fall. That's probably something you don't want to take the risk on borrowing, but it's a very low risk because the interest rates are so low and you just pay it back when the case is over. How many people, well, we had a lot of cases on appeal, or we have had cases on appeal. And that's just money sitting out there that you're going to get at some point, because, if you have a verdict, it's going to be upheld at some point. You might as well use that money and reinvest it in the business to hire some people. Because hiring people really multiplies by 10 what you can do or what you think you're doing really good at, or things that you shouldn't be doing as a lawyer. You shouldn't be receiving the mail and scanning it in and doing all these menial tasks. If you get someone, Ashley, you got to hire somebody, but it's got to be someone that you just have a gut reaction. And there's a great book by, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell, called Blink. And the gist of that book is just your gut reaction is usually right. And you usually talk yourself out of it. And then you bring back to that original gut conclusion. Like, you may meet someone and be like, I don't like this person. I just have a weird feeling. And then your friends are like, oh, he's awesome. Okay, he's awesome. You think he's awesome. And then a year later, you're like, I should have just trusted my gut because that got me into some trouble. But that works the opposite, where you meet someone, you're like, this is a good person. This person just wants to grind and be happy and work with me. And that's going to be your better hire than the person that has a ton of experience that you just had an icky feeling about. And that's just something that every individual vibes with a different individual better. So your gut reaction could be true for person A, and it could be wrong for person B, but somebody else may not have that same reaction and may not be correct about that reaction, because it's, a partnership is a partnership, and Bob's my partner. But you're also being almost married to every employee. You're responsible for them. You're helping them, and they're helping you, and you want to make sure that that's a relationship that's going to last, and not something where you're constantly butting heads because of something. And maybe you believe something so strongly politically. Do you really want to hire someone that's going to constantly butt heads and cause friction? Maybe that's a good thing, but maybe that's just going to take too much negative energy every day to deal with that situation. So, and it's different for everybody.
What was that? You mentioned the book is named Blink. Who wrote it?
I think it's Malcolm Gladwell. Blink.
Blank. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah, Blink, the power of thinking without thinking. And that's good for jury selection. It's good for pretty much anything. It's good for clients. And I think I was out with in Palm Springs, and I was talking to Ibieri about a trial she had coming up. And she had all these great things she was going to do with the client and how she was going to explain their story. And I said, Ibi, do you like this person? And she hesitated. And I said, see, that hesitation is all you need to understand that that's going to be the jury saying hesitation. And sometimes you may have the greatest facts on paper for a case, but then you meet the client and you're like, this person, they're just not going to like this person, or this person is just, no one's going to have that gut reaction. And the jurors, usually their gut reaction, they hold on to the entire trial. So, and then sometimes you meet a client and you're like, this is an amazing human. They're going to give this person anything that we ask for because they deserve it. It all comes down to that gut reaction. So I think that's a great book to read and really understand the whole concept, because there's a science behind it. It's just not like foo-foo. It's, and actual studies were done.
What was your advice to Ibieri if she hesitated about her client? What was your
Try to
advice?
settle the case, and I think she went to trial, and it was a bad outcome, but it was something where she had to do it. It was something where she couldn't just.
I had that experience. Yeah, I had that experience where I liked the client, but I wasn't sure I fully believed the client. And no matter what I did, when the client testified, the jury felt it too. I think that's 150% true. So
that's, I mean, we did a lot of law talk, but I think there's people that are out there that have passions that go beyond the law. I like the law. I like when laws come out and analyzing them. I like Supreme Court decisions. I like seeing how they came to that decision. But there's, I guess I'm very rare when it comes to that. And there's people that do things outside of practice. Like, Ashley, what do you do for fun?
and that's a good point. Because, and to answer your question, I do a lot of stuff for fun, but a lot of people would probably find it very strange. Nothing like that. I do a lot of self-help, personal development. Just got back into snowboarding. That's the short answer. Working out. That's the short answer.
Two things I never do: working out and snowboarding.
I did it for the first time on Sunday. I haven't actually snowboarded since before my son was born. So I was scared that I was going to spend the entire day on my butt going down the mountain, but it was a lot better than what I thought it was. And I cannot wait to get back out there again because I finally did it. But I want to ask you about that because we talked about the importance of hiring, right? And the idea that if you hire the right person that you trust, you're going to be able to move those cases forward quicker. The second question I want to ask you is how you guys went about procuring cases when the firm was young. And then the third question is, now that your firm is established, you and I talked about how you invest outside of the law. So going back to the beginning when Simon Law Group was younger, what did you guys do to push yourselves out there? Were the majority of your cases referral based? Did you get them, directly from the community? What did you guys do?
I think our pretty much only marketing, almost to date, has been Bob. Just Bob out there talking to people. I know we would go grocery shopping at that Ralph's in Brentwood, and he would just have his card on him, and he would just make little jokes to people, like checking out in the checkout line, and he'll be like, "Hey, if you see anybody slip and fall, you let me know," like to the cashier. And it's funny because they're working there, but he just handed his card out to everybody. And that was, to date, we don't really do any SEO marketing. We tried to do advertising on buses for a hot minute, and that was not successful because we're trying to compete with people that could spend hundreds of thousands, even seven figures every month just to get their message out there. So we figured out our best message was just going to be success and talking to human beings.
And he's obviously.
When I say we, I mean Bob.
I get the feeling that he's the extrovert and you're more the introvert, right?
Yeah, that's without a doubt. He's Julie's an extrovert, but the rest of us Simons would prefer to be in a dark room, in a hoodie, with a computer pretty much 90% of our lives.
See, this is where my twin would benefit me because I'm more like you. And she's like totally extroverted. And it's funny because my son is totally an extrovert. My daughter's totally an introvert. I tried to get her to start a dog walking business because she kept, buying things off Amazon. And I'm like, you got to work for some of this money. And just getting her to get out and just talk to people who are walking the neighborhood. She was like, she would rather pull her eyelashes out with a tweezer. And I was like, dude, you need to get Cody out. Like, he will do all the talking. He walks up to random people, is like, hey, you have a good day. You have a good day. Like, this is what he does in the neighborhood. It's amazing. So I think, it's natural.
You need that in a business. And if that's not you, you got to find someone that can do that.
Yeah, it's natural.
Engagements just because, I like sharing my knowledge and I can't just sit at home all day. And then when I do it, I love it. I just dread having to do it. But then when I do it, I'm really comfortable and I enjoy it.
But do you feel drained after? Because I feel like some people feel drained and some people just get all this like energy. I feel drained after doing stuff like that.
I go lay down for an hour after this. This has been the most, I think I got like 1,000-word limit a day. And if I hit that, I just have to reset. Okay.
So you guys got the majority of your cases in the beginning through word of mouth because Bob was out there being the mouthpiece for the firm. Yeah?
That's Bob and Eric. Eric still does community events. He'll, like, every year we sponsor his son's like athletic, some banner in some field, and that's out there. We're in programs, like really community-based specific marketing, which we've been successful at. Just really getting into specific. I know, like, Steve Rosen just hits San Clemente hard. He's from there. I think
He
sometimes
actually told me that. He said you need to start hitting Long Beach, your own community. He's like, go hard on your own community.
I talked to yesterday about sponsoring like the fence at the Seal Beach Pony League. Because I live in Rossmore, but
My son is about to join that.
good. We were thinking about doing a Justice HQ banner, but Simon Law Group we get actual cases. Justice HQ doesn't have cases, and there's not going to be many attorneys out there on the sidelines thinking, no, what is Justice HQ? But I think, yeah, Seal Beach Pony League, it's something. I love baseball. It's my son's, he might be a professional video game player, but his sports are not going to be his thing. But that's totally cool. That's everyone's got to do what they do best. And I think that's the hallmark of Justice HQ is quit trying to be something you're not and you're not good at. I'm the world's worst deposition taker. Like the last deposition I did was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And it was the defendant, and she was just this girl, and I just felt bad asking her questions. Like I didn't want to like grill her. And some people are amazing at that. I'd rather be writing motions and, just if you stick with what you're good at, I think but if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Right.
And I have that with this job. There's other businesses that I run as well as the Simon Law Group that I have an equal passion for, but I'm able to do these passions now because of the law firm.
Yeah.
That's in a good place.
So let's talk about that. So I think the key is what you're saying is get your own firm into a position where, because right now, like my firm is still, young enough to where I'm still doing everything, right? And to be honest with you, there are some things I hate it. I would love to offload some of the things I hate the most so that I could do the things I love the most, right? Because that's the whole point of being an entrepreneur is you get to go live the life that you design, right? So you now have set up the Simon Law Group to where it is sustainable without you needing to be involved in every single task. You've got people you trust. You can delegate the things that you don't like. So now Brad gets to go focus on the things outside of the law that he loves. And you do invest in those things, right?
So I always believe in investing in yourself. And I love real estate, but I also I worked at a real estate litigation defense firm and I know a lot about it. And so we were able through an SBA loan, and I heard about an SBA loan from this guy named Eric Brown many, many years ago. And he was saying, we got this sweet building downtown LA, and we built it out with like a basketball court in it. And I'm like, what? How did you do this? And he said, man, SBA loan, just look into the SBA loan. And I was like, this can't be true. And so we were banking with Wells Fargo, and I talked to their SBA loan division, and it was like, yeah, if you put 10% down, there's an SBA program that you can acquire a building and even do a build out as long as you put down 10% and you qualify for it. The interest rates are super low. And we're like, really? And so I was like, okay. So Bob and I have like 4 commercial buildings that our law firm is the tenant in. And we were able to get these all 10% down, and it's an amazing program. And even during COVID, there was an Sba Loan Forgiveness for many months for businesses just not having to pay that back. But that's something everyone can look into. And I think as long as you have a couple years of being a self-employer, and that's what most people who are listening to this probably are self-employers, a few years of being a self-employer to show that a stream of income. And certain banks, like there's Pinnacle Bank with Advocate Capital, that understands the personal injury business model, and they're not looking for that straight line of revenue. They understand it's up and down, up and down, up and down to qualify to get that loan. So we're able to have these buildings, like the building you're in right now, Ashley, is owned by Bob and I, and we were leased it back to ourselves, and we're able to do the renovation for a $2 million building. If you have 200 grand, you could be able to get that, and that $200,000 could be that you hit a big case, and instead of going and getting some new S-Class Mercedes, be like, I'm going to get a building and I'm going to depreciate that asset, which helps on taxes, but also paying rent to yourselves. That's an expense. It's something that we're able to maintain itself now because we did these things early on. So that's real estate.
And it's an asset in your portfolio, and you guys are literally your own tenant, so it's being taken care of,
Correct.
Okay. And it's obviously good for taxes. So you would recommend buying, because I know some attorneys are looking into that. They are looking into buying their own buildings where they put their law firms.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that right now. I think that the commercial real estate market's going to take a big dip because you see a lot of businesses just can't maintain it, which means people are losing tenants, which means, these high rises with many floors of lawyers is just not going to be the reality anymore. I talked to this guy that's an in-house lawyer for farmers that had many floors in downtown LA, and they're just saying we don't need office space anymore. Everyone's going to be working from home because they found, like we found, which I always assumed was true, people can work from home. You can come into meeting spaces for like Justice HQ when you need to, but you don't need a dedicated office space unless you have a lot of employees. But even then, most people can work from home. And I think the residential market is still going up because people are now buying bigger homes because they can work from home. But the commercial space is going to tank. It's going to happen in like 6 months. So I would.
You're thinking because of COVID and because people are becoming more acclimated. Like I think post-COVID, I'm shocked when I get discovery responses in the mail. I'm like, why did you even bother printing the paper? We're all doing, I think electronic service is here to stay. I think remote depots for the most part are here to stay. So you think the commercial market in terms of law firms is going to be less valuable because we are all now acclimated from working remotely?
I think like office buildings in this traditional, like many different suites, and we're not going to see. Yeah, I think LA County used to lease a ton of space in Long Beach, and like the World Trade Center building, and I think they're just like we're not renewing it. So how many like open spaces is that going to be, and that's going to dilute and drive down the price of actual purchasing of real estate, or I mean office spaces, not so much like retail stores. I think those will be fine. I think brick and mortar stores are always here to stay. I love going downtown Seal Beach and just walking to traditional brick and mortar places. I think those will be fine.
I like it in Seal Beach too. Yeah. Yeah.
But at some point, because I do have a building on Main Street there, and I have a tenant down there, and she still pays rent and she's still making it due. Because I think people are really, hopefully, and I think everyone is supporting local businesses and mom and pop stores, which Seal Beach has a lot of, and they try to keep.
And they're great stores. So do you think it is still, do you think it will still be worth it to invest in commercial real estate?
Yes, and I think it's going to be a great buying opportunity in probably 3 to 4 months.
Because of the price dip.
Because of the price dip. And I think that's going to be, every generation, there's like, this is the best buying opportunity ever. I think it's coming. I think residential, if you're thinking about buying something, just do it because it's only going to go up higher. I do think I see a lot of people like now I'm working from home, or people that are in a condo that was great. And now they're like, man, I want to kill my husband or wife because we're seeing each other all day, every day. And if we just had more square footage, it would be, more manageable. And I think people are going to start doing that.
I tell you, I am working from home, but when I do find the next hire, I am going to have to go back into an office space, which personally, I do like working from home, but I do want the option of going into a dedicated office space and honestly just being around other people.
Yeah, and that's why when the Torrance buildings are going to open, we Justice HQ, the management team's talking about having a staff pass and actually having staff members have the ability to come in too, because that's going to be a much larger space.
That would be so fantastic because I'm only going to need one.
Exactly. Most people just have one. Some people have none. Some people have two. And if that's all that it is, we want everyone to maintain their identity. And I think a lot of people lose their identity when they go to bigger firms.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be a real solution for a lot of people.
It is. And I'll tell you, it's going to be a real solution because there's no point in us paying for both having the option of the GHQ space. Like Torrance will be my home because I'm in Long Beach, and having to rent another office just to house one other person. I think that's such a brilliant idea. But aside from, I don't have a whole lot of time with you. So I do want to cover the other things that you have branched out to. You mentioned a video game company.
Yes. So when Bob and I turned 40 last year, we wanted to go back and do something we did as kids, which was play Dungeons and Dragons. Like we hadn't done that since we were like, when we discovered alcohol, we were like, Dungeons and Dragons, we've got this whole other world that's open to us. Always loved it. I've loved the fantasy stuff. I like Lord of the Rings, all this stuff. I love video games. I like playing the old school Sega games and Nintendo, Super Nintendo.
Yes.
And,
Did you guys blow on the discs?
I just saw that never worked.
I did too. I was shocked. I just remember doing it.
Way to ruin my BuzzFeed.
I know.
So we started out, my friend Dave Racky had created this game. He says it's a lot like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's a tabletop role-playing game, which means we all get together and we have, little pieces and our different sided dice and we play, but he had a whole different system than Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, man, this is awesome. And we kept playing and I was like, this is all I think about is the character that I designed. What's his story? What's his progression? How is he going to tell this tale? And I was like, talking to Dave about actually creating this game. And then we had a prototype of this actual physical table with a monitor in it. So you could upload maps and do everything basically from a coffee table. But then COVID hit, we had already rented an RV. We were going to drive out to spring training. We were going to play this game called Ravel from LA to, Phoenix, Scottsdale, the whole drive. And then we were going to go watch baseball games during the day. It was going to be the greatest thing. And then COVID shut everything down. That was like in March. Okay. And so we continued to play the game, but we were playing it on Zoom with a shared screen. And so we figured out we could develop a game that solves all these different things that Dungeons and Dragons does terribly, which is, Dungeons and Dragons, it's a lot of math. You got to, did I hit this person? For how much did I hit this person? And it's a lot of work to even create a 2-hour session for your friends. It takes 3 hours of work to create that. Okay. But we're developing a game that you're able to create that whole session in less than 30 minutes or less. Like the maps are pre-generated, or you can create your own maps. You can just drop in monsters. It's like, for the super nerds out there, it's like Dungeons and Dragons meets Super Mario Maker 2, meets Octopath Traveler, beats any Japanese role-playing game. So it'll look and feel like a Final Fantasy game. It'll look like the classic games that we grew up on, but it'll have an amazing, we got a South Korean composer who's phenomenal, is going to do the score for the game. And it's cool to have all these different international players. And I'm using my law license, like intellectual property, which I loved, to start talking about, we got to patent the gameplay. We got to trademark all these different aspects of the game.
Go learn. How did you do that?
With all the free time I don't have.
Because I'm like, if I had to go research patent law right now, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Well, it's a whole different bar, and that's something that we're definitely hiring a patent lawyer, and I consult with different IP lawyers. Is the consumer confused with this enough where they think it's something else? From coming to America, remember McDowell's, and they had McDowell's. I'm working at McDowell's. It looked exactly like McDonald's. That's clear trademark infringement. So we're going to make sure that everything we do in this game is not going to have the ears pick up of the people that did Final Fantasy and the people that do these other games, because it is different, but it takes a lot of the classic role playing. There's black mages, there's white mages, there's people with swords and daggers and thieves and rogues, and it's fun. But the best part is creating your character and telling a story, and it's the creativity that goes along with it. Like my brother Brandon just ended his session, a year-long campaign with 5 or 6 people, and it ended in some giant battle last night. And it's like all these different stories were told from these different characters, and they all get a piece of seeing how the story is driven, because it's not the set story. The story it's called Ravel, and it's kind of like you unravel your own tale together. And the person that's running the game has to react to what the players do. So when the demo comes out shortly, I'll let everyone take a look at it, but it's not ready yet.
Okay, that's exciting. That's exciting. So you are pursuing your passions outside of the law because your firm obviously can sustain.
I got let's see if I can see it, Stark Industries.
Yeah.
I say I wear this shirt every 3 days because, wear it, throw it in the laundry, and then it's ready for me. But Stark, it's actually a lot of my favorite things. It's comic books, because it's Tony Stark, he's Iron Man. Cinematic universe has done the best job of anything in our generation with continuing a story over multiple movies. It's also tech, like Tony Stark is tech forward, and he's always thinking ahead, and to his own detriment of how to always be responsible for the entire world. But that's something that I love the shirt, because it's everything that I believe in. I think we should always be thinking forward, and if you live life in the rear view, you're always going to be missing something. You just looking at it, I wish I had done that differently. that
Yes.
doesn't get you anywhere.
Right. Yes. And that leads me to my last and final question, which is, as the person who was responsible for making the Simon Law Group dreams come true, what one piece of advice would you give to an attorney who is just starting out on their own?
I would say you're just starting out. A lot of people need a job to make ends meet, but you have to understand that you will get trapped in that area of law if you stay there too long.
Okay.
So I started out doing, securities exchange stuff, and I did not like it at all. And I had to just quit that job and jump into something that I've never done before, which is real estate law, because I did like that. Because if you get 2 or 3 years into that area of law, that's all you may get stuck doing for the rest of your legal career.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So if you are doing, even if you're doing insurance defense, if you do like helping people, that is one good way to do it. You are learning the trade, and you can transition to plaintiff work later if you want. But if you're doing just a law job, just to do a law job, just to make ends meet, after 3 years, you're going to be known as the lawyer in that field, and find something different. So find something that an area that you like doing.
And I found that my experience in insurance defense actually made me a better plaintiff's attorney. So it was definitely it wasn't all for naught. It definitely made me evaluate the cases from the defense perspective, so I could find, where the areas of attack were going to be. So as long as I think you're in the area that you want to be in, whether it's on the insurance or defense or on the plaintiff side, it's still all going to tie together as long as you're in the area you want to be in.
I think that's completely true. And it's everyone gets paid by the same pool. Everyone's getting paid by the insurance company. The defense lawyers, eventually the plaintiff lawyers, eventually our clients, the experts. It's all the same pool. So everyone should be civilly working together, because you work against and with the same people through your career. But some of the best lawyers in our firm were defense lawyers. Jenny Anglin, Ryan Conger, Tom Conroy, all were in the defense field for, I think each of them spent 10 years as defense lawyers. And now when we do case intake, they're the best people at case intake, because you look for what's wrong and look at a different perspective than a plaintiff lawyer may just look, oh, this person got the surgery. Yeah, but this person had 10 years of complaints, was scheduled for an epidural when the accident happened, and then the MRIs looked the same before and after. And that's something that any adjuster, any defense lawyer is going to pick apart. That sometimes plaintiff lawyers that have always been plaintiff lawyers overlook some of these nuances. Obviously, you learn as you go, but defense lawyers, how many defense files did you have to take on at one time? 50, 100?
Yeah. It was probably between 40 and 60 at a time.
Yeah, that's crazy. But you learn, defense litigation. You learn time management. You learn to move cases. And
you write status reports. You learn for what the insurance companies look for when they're valuing a case. You learn where the weak spots are. You learn, you can already anticipate the questions they're going to be asking at the deposition. It's very formulaic. Defense work, tends to be more on the formulaic side. I want to make sure people know how to find you if they want to follow up on anything you said today. Well, how do you want to be contacted?
You can contact my twin brother, Bob. It's robert@justicesteam.com. He'll be my final mouthpiece. No, I'm kidding. Email is the best for me, because I have a special needs daughter who I have to take care of in like 2 minutes.
Yes.
It's very hard for me to get on the phone.
Yes.
But I can respond to texts and emails when she decides to be focused on something for like 30 seconds.
Got it.
Brad@justicesteam.com. I'm very quick to respond over email. And I mean, that's really the easiest way to get a hold of me. I try to clear out and have less than 10 unread emails every day. So I do respond, even if it's not that day, maybe the next day, but I do get back to people as much as I can. I know Heath has that same mantra, and so does my brother and my
bad respect, man. Going through my emails all day long, like I have to literally shut off my notifications when I'm doing something important, so I make sure I focus. So I have a lot of respect for that. That's really efficient.
But yeah, that's the best way to get hold of me. Again, Dad and Kane play games on YouTube. The game we have is called Ravel. It'll be out by October, at least the beta version. And this has been awesome, Ashley. Thank you. I am mentally exhausted from having to talk this much.
Sorry. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate having you. Again, I am Ashley Laiken from the Laiken Law Group. You can find me on YouTube by my name, Ashley Laiken, or on Instagram, Laiken_law_group. Brad, thank you so much. To everybody tuning in, thank you as well. And thank you so much for joining in on this week's edition of Justice HQ's Level Up with Laiken. Sending you lots of love, joy, and success this week. We will see you next week. All right, everybody. Thanks.
Yep.